Mr. Cooper is super. New York Times best-selling author Dan Gumman. Picture by Jim Pilot. Here's the character. AJ, Ryan, Michael, Alexia, Andrea, Emily, Neil, the nude kid. Chapter 7. Red Man. We were all singing about enormous pink elephant wearing tutus, holding little umbrellas, and singing John Jacob's Jingle Hammer Chimney. Mr. Cooper told us he would be back in a minute, and he stepped out of the room. Me and Michael and Ryan got up and shook our butt at the class. Everybody laughed except for Andrea and Emily, who just rolled their eyes. A minute later, Mr. Cooper came running back into the room. This time, he almost knocked over the computer in the corner and fell down again. Man, for a superhero, Mr. Cooper fell down a lot. He was wearing a different costume this time. There was a big R on his cape. He also had a rash of cheese hanging onto his belt. That was weird. "Behold," he announced, I am Red Man." "Red Man?" I said. "I said you were Cooper Man." "That must have been some other guy," said Mr. Cooper. "I am Red Man, and I have come to teach you about rat." "What?" "Rat. Rats. Why do we have to learn about rats?" Henry asked. "I think rats are disgusting." "No, they're not," said Mr. Cooper as he stepped into the hallway and came back with a big cage in his hand. "Rats are fascinating animals." "Eek!" screamed all the girls except for Alexia. He has live rats. Gross!" "Cool," yelled all the boys and Alexia. "Male rats are called bucks," Mr. Cooper said as he took one of the rats out of the cage and patted. "Females are called does, and babies are called kitten or pups, but I call this one Wilbur." The girls were freaking out, but Wilbur didn't seem all that scared to me. Mr. Cooper told us that rats are smart, friendly, and social. When a rat gets sick, its rat friend will even take care of it. He told us a lot of other neat stuff about rats too. "Do you want to pat Wilbur?" asked Mr. Cooper. "No!" shouted all the guys. "Yes!" shouted all the boys. "Oh, come on," said Mr. Cooper. "I bet at least one of the girls must be brave enough to pat Wilbur." "I'll do it," said little Miss Perfect, who will do anything to impress the teacher. Andrea scrunched up her eyes, and Mr. Cooper carefully put Wilbur in her hands. "See, Wilbur really likes you," said Mr. Cooper. "That when the most amazing thing in the history of the world happened." Andrea must have twitched or something, because Wilbur jumped off her hand, landed on the floor, and ran away. "Eek!" everybody shrieked. Wilbur ran out the back of the room. "Calm down, everyone," said Mr. Cooper. "Please calm down. That's a loose rat in the class. Run for your life!" We were all freaking out. It was just a rat. What's the big deal? "I'll get him," said Andrea. Everybody was running around like the Earth had been hit by an asteroid or something. Half the class was chasing Wilbur, and the other half of the class was running away from him. Finally, Andrea and I cornered Wilbur in the corner. Wilbur looked at Andrea. Wilbur looked at me. "Put your lunchbox over him, Arlo," said Andrea. She calls me by my real name because she knows I don't like it. "I'm not putting my lunchbox over a rat," I told her. "Why don't you put your lunchbox over him?" "I don't have my lunchbox today." Andrea said, "I'm buying lunch in the crematorium." "Well, use your pencil case," I told Andrea. "I'm not putting my pencil case over a rat," she laughed. "Why don't you use your pencil case?" We went back and forth like that for a while. Wilbur was still cornered in the corner. He looked nervous. and you never believe who walked into the door at that moment. Nobody. You would hurt if you walk into the door, but you never believe who walked into the doorway. It was Mr. Cox. How are you kids making out? He asked. Yee, gross! Everybody started choking, gagging because Mr. Cox said making out again. We are learning about rats, said Mr. Cooper, but one of them seemed to have escaped. You brought live rats to school with you? Asked Mr. Cox. Are you out of your mind, Mr. Cooper? Is this any way to teach the children? Sure it is, Mr. Cooper replied. See, Asia and Andrea are totally engaged. Ooh, Ryan said. Asia and Andrea are engaged. When are you two gonna get married? Asked Michael. If those guys were my best friend, I would hate them. Chapter 8. The Attack of Super Librarian. After 1,100,000 hours, we were able to capture Wilbur the rat and get him back inside his cage. Okay, it's time for math, said Ratman. I mean Mr. Cooper. No, not math. Anything but math. Why do we have to learn math? Isn't that why they invent calculator? I love math, said Andrea. Math is fun. What is your problem? Why can't a truck full of math book fall on her head? I want to go to Antarctica and live with the penguins. This was the worst thing to happen since TV turned big. Turn to page 23 in your math book, said Mr. Cooper. Does anybody have any questions? I do, I said. How old are rocks? Who was the first person to drink milk from cow? Why do we have Spring Olympics? Who invented sandpaper? What color is the White House? Math question, AJ, said Mr. Cooper. Do you have any question about math? Mr. Cooper looked mad. I think he was going to say something mean to me, but he never got the chance because you never believe who ran into the door at that moment. Nobody. You have to be crazy to run into the door, and so we went over that already, but you never believe who ran into the doorway. It was a lady dressed up in a superhero costume. She had a big owl in her cap. She was wearing a mask over her eyes, but she looked like our librarian, Mrs. Ruby. Oh no, said Mr. Cooper. My arch enemy is here. What do you have against arches? I asked. Everybody laughed and so I didn't say anything funny. It is I, announced the lady as she struck a superhero pose. Super librarian! You look a lot like Mrs. Ruby, said Andrea. Ruby? asked the masked lady. Never heard of her. I am Super Librarian. She really looked like a lot of Mrs. Ruby to me. Oh yeah? What superpower do you have? asked Galaxia. I can log in books and check them out at super speed, said Super Librarian, and I have memorized the entire Dewey Decimal System. Pick a number and I will tell you what books go with that number. Number 796, shouted Ryan. You'll find books about sport in 796. Replied Super Librarian. She's right, said Ryan. She really does have superpower. She does not, said the other kid. I bet a lot of librarians know the Dewey Decimal System. Well, I can leap our giant stack of books in a single bound, said Super Librarian. That's not a big deal, said Michael. Oh yeah, said Super Librarian. Well, I can shelve books with one hand. No way, we all shout. It's impossible to shelve a book with one hand. You need one hand to move the other hand aside and your second hand to slip the book into its place. What's this? Said Super Librarian. She ran over to the bookcase and put one hand into behind her back. Then she pulled out a book from the shelf and slipped it between the books on the other shelf using just one hand. Wow, everybody said. which his mom sat down. Your power are indestructible, super librarian, said Mr. Cooper. Well, why are you here? I have come to get your overdue library books, said the super librarian. I don't have any overdue library books, said Mr. Cooper. Oh no, said super librarian as she ran back to bookcase, pulled out a book and waved it in the air. Then what's this? That's uh, uh, it's overdue, shouted the librarian. If you borrow something, it's important to return it. So now you must pay for your crimes against humanity. But I just start working here. No buts, said the librarian. Everybody started giggling because the librarian said but, which sound like just like butts. Even so, it only has one T. I said she was going to have Mr. Cooper pay a fine for his overdue library books, but they're not what happened at all. Instead, the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. The two of them started fighting. Mr. Cooper and Super Librarian scored off and began to do carrot chalk and kick at each other. It was cool. Oof! Yelled Mr. Cooper. Take that! Yelled Super Librarian, and that! Everyone yelling and screaming and hooting and hollering. Man, the lady's really serious about over the library books, said Ryan. Mr. Cooper did the one-so spinning kick, but Super Library blocked it as he fell on the floor. It was excited. We all glued to our seats. Well, not really. Why would anybody glue themselves to sit? That could be weird. How would you get the glue off? I don't approve all of this violence, said Andrea. I set a bad example to children. Or do you have against violence? I asked. Not violence, although, said Andrea. Violence! I don't approve of violence. Can you possibly be more boring? I asked. After a few more vicious carrot chalks and kicks, Mr. Cooper fell down again. Sure, Super Librarian jumped on top of him and pinned him to the floor. Say uncle, shouted Super Librarian. Uncle, groaned Mr. Cooper. When you lose a fight, you have to say uncle. Nobody knows why. Super Librarian got up of Mr. Cooper and helped him stand up. I'll take this book back to Liberia, where it belongs, said Super Librarian. I'm sorry it was overdue, said Mr. Cooper. I accept your apology, said Super Librarian. See that it doesn't happen again, and I hope you will be sure to always return your books to the library. If you don't, you will face the wrath of Super Librarian. Then she picked up the overdue book and dashed out of the room. Mr. Ruby is Ruby.